Thanks, Dan. I think I called you guys adorable. So you know. Great. Well, yeah, like Dan said, I am the director for Chi Alpha over at UW Superior. I also have a cute family. I just wanted to show you a picture of my adorable little family. So this is my husband. We've been married for 16 years, I think. I don't know. I got married when I was a baby. So, and we have two beautiful daughters. This is a picture of us on Star Wars Day, which is a holiday in our house, which is May the 4th. If you're a nerd, you get it, and if you don't, that's fine. Cool. All right, so we are doing a series here at Chi Alpha that we are calling Jesus Changes Everything, where each of the staff are taking a turn and talking about the moment that we met Jesus and how he came and changed everything for us. And so I want to start by telling you just a little bit about me as a small child. And some of the things about me is that I was an awkward kid. And I think that most people are like, yes, every kid is awkward. Every kid is trying to figure it out. Well, I was both awkward and also weird looking. And I don't just mean like gangly and like a kid, but I have some pictures. And I have what's called a lazy eye, which means that when I was a kid, they tried to correct that by, I would wear ginormous glasses and I wore an eye patch. So I was like just as awkward looking and as weird looking as you could get. And so these are some pictures of me, and I feel like the dance one, I'm not wearing my eye patch, but it just like embodies the awkwardness that was Kalyn as a child. And so that's how I was. And I think that I noticed how weird or how different I was when I went to kindergarten. So when I went into kindergarten, I became this very shy person. And it's because the kids who were around me, I could just tell, even like 5-year-old Kalyn knew that people didn't know what to do with me because I looked weird. Which I now can look back and be like, of course kids just didn't know how to interact with, I call myself the pirate child because I wore an eye patch. Like, they didn't know what to do with me. But because of that and because of their reaction to me, I became very shy, like really uncomfortably shy, to the point where I kind of stopped talking to people. And I can remember there was this one moment where our teacher had us gather and we were doing like circle times. We're all on the rug and she's, I don't know, doing like, what's the weather today and the calendar and reading us stories. And I can remember I had to pee so bad. But 6-year-old Kalyn didn't know how to like interrupt what was happening. And so I sat there and I was like, well, I think that my option is that I go to the bathroom here. This is the obvious answer. And so I did. And I was like, well, this is happening. I don't know how to get my teacher's attention. And so not only did I do that, but then I can remember for the rest of the day, any time that we would line up to go somewhere like you do when you're a small child in school, I would let every single kid, I'd be like, go in front of me, because I didn't want anybody to notice that I had peed my pants and that they were wet. And so I just like lived like that all day long. So that was awkward, shy Kalyn. And I would also say that thankfully in school, I wasn't bullied. Like I think that could very easily lead to bullying the way that I looked, just because I looked different. But I was just kind of ignored. Kids just didn't know what to do with me. And I also felt like I was just average. Like in every area of my life, I was just an average kid. When it came to academics in school, I was like, I'm decent, I get okay grades, but I'm not great, I'm not terrible, except for spelling. I'm horrible at spelling. If there are misspellings in my slides, it's fine. I've come to terms with it. It's what it is. I'm terrible at spelling. And also, I think the things that matter to kids, sports. I was okay at sports, but I wasn't great at sports. And I also have a younger brother who was great at sports, and he was also really funny. And so people remembered my brother, but they had no idea that I existed. We have this joke in my family that people knew who Caleb was, who is my younger brother, and that teachers would be like, oh, Caleb has a sister? They just didn't know that I existed. And I just felt overlooked. And I began to wonder if I mattered. Did anybody care about Kalyn? Did anybody see me? And that was my existence as a kid. This awkward, shy, pirate kid. That was me. Well, tonight we're going to read a story about a guy who, like me, was known for his not-so-desirable physical attribute. We're going to read about Zacchaeus. Okay, Zacchaeus, the one thing everybody knows about Zacchaeus, if you grew up in church, you know the song. It goes, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. Yeah, the one thing everybody knows about Zacchaeus is he was a short guy. Not something you want to be known for, but that's what Zacchaeus was known for. And I had an eye patch. That's what I was known for. It's not what you want to be known for, but it's what I was known for. So we are going to read the story about Zacchaeus, which is found in Luke 19, starting in verse 1. So if you want to turn there, you can, but it also will be on the screen. As you're getting there, I just want to set up our story just a little bit. So this is going to take place while Jesus is on earth. And at this point in the story, Jesus has been doing miracles, he's healing people, and he's teaching in a way that has the Jewish people very curious about him. Everybody wanted to see Jesus because he was doing unbelievable things. So everybody wants to see Jesus. Okay, starting in verse 1, it says that Jesus entered Jericho and made his way through the town. There was a man there named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in the region, and he had become very rich. He tried to get a look at Jesus, but he was too short to see over the crowd. Both me and Zacchaeus had trouble seeing. Zacchaeus because he was short, me because I have no depth perception. I identify with Zacchaeus here. Okay, so he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree beside the road, for Jesus was going to pass that way. When Jesus came by, he looked up at Zacchaeus and called to him by name. Zacchaeus, he said, quick, come down. I must be a guest in your home today. Zacchaeus quickly climbed down and took Jesus into his house in great excitement and joy. We're going to pause there. All right, I want to pray before we get into what I want to talk about. Yeah, Lord Jesus, thank you that we get to know you. Thank you that we get to be in this room together. I pray that you would use this story to help us to understand you more and to understand ourselves in light of who you are. I pray these things in your name. Amen and amen. All right, so I want us to understand Zacchaeus just a little bit more. And so Zacchaeus is a short, little, powerful man. He has a powerful position. I think that a modern representation could be the guy who's going to be on the screen. If you don't know who this is Lord Farquaad from Shrek. He's known for being short and a ruler who is a jerk. And so this is, I think that this is a great representation. So you can just think, like every time I say Zacchaeus, think of this guy. Think of him in your mind. All right, that can stay up there for a little bit. Okay, some important things to understand Zacchaeus. It says in verse 2 that he is a chief tax collector, meaning that he was the manager of tax collectors, which is likely how he got his wealth. But in that day, being a tax collector meant that you were working for the enemy. For the Jewish people, it meant that Zacchaeus was a Jew who was working for the Romans. And being a tax collector would have meant that he was disliked by his fellow countrymen. He would have been an outcast in his own town and with his own people. Zacchaeus, this is the thing we all know, he's short. So he goes and he climbs up a tree to get a glimpse of Jesus. And in this we can see that Zacchaeus has eagerness to see Jesus. Everybody wants to see Jesus, but for Zacchaeus, even the idea that it makes sense because he's short that he climbs a tree to be able to see over the crowds. But the part that doesn't make sense is that his position as a chief tax collector, it would be weird to see the chief tax collector in a tree. That'd be like seeing the mayor up in the tree, or like the sheriff. You'd be like, why are you up there? What are you doing? You, this person should not be up in a tree. But this is what's happening as so many people are trying to see Jesus. And everybody is curious about him. Everybody wants to see who Jesus is. There's thought that he could be the promised Savior. So everybody wants to see Jesus for themselves. And so Zacchaeus is one person in this ginormous crowd. And Jesus stops and he says, Zacchaeus, I see you up in that tree, and I want to go to your house. I imagine meeting somebody famous, somebody that you like, whether that's some celebrity or an athlete. Maybe it'd be like, I don't know, Taylor Swift or somebody like it'd be like being in a ginormous crowd of people, and all of a sudden they say to you, I want to go to your house. I want to hang out with you. And I think I would be taken back by that. Like, why? What is happening here? But this is the moment that Jesus calls out Zacchaeus. He calls him by name. And this is where everything changes. Jesus stops and he sees Zacchaeus in the tree. And I would dare say that Jesus does the same thing for you and for me. He sees us. That is the first way that Jesus changes everything, is that he sees you, that you are seen. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay, yeah, I just added fun emojis because I think everything should have emojis. I am definitely that person who's like, I'm writing a message, gonna add a whole bunch of emojis. So I added emojis to each of my points. You can look forward to those in the future. So even when we feel unseen, like this emoji here, Jesus sees us. So this happened for me when I was in the 6th grade. This was the moment that Jesus came and he called my name. I had lived all 11 years to that point without many friends and flying under the radar, feeling awkward and like nobody cared about me. Until a girl invited me to attend her church's youth camp. I went, and it was one of the first times that I had ever felt wanted or invited or seen or cared about. And the reason that this girl, her name is Casey, invited me, and I found out later every single girl in our class, so I felt really special. No, it still was special. The reason that she had gone and invited all of the girls of our class to this camp is because she wanted to share the love of Jesus with those around her. Casey's invitation and her friendship was a tangible way that I learned what the love of God looks like. It looked like caring and friendship and acceptance like I'd never known before. And I quickly came to know that this way of life that Casey had was something that I wanted. And I knew that it wasn't just her being nice, but it came out of her friendship with Jesus. So I soon decided that I wanted and I needed Jesus to live in this new way. This is the moment that Jesus came and found me. I thought that I was unseen, but Jesus saw me and he used Casey to invite me into life with him. Jesus changed everything for me. Jesus' love and acceptance and forgiveness took this unseen, wondering if I mattered at all, into this person who is friendly and knows that I matter. I am now less shy. I'm still kind of shy. But I also want to say that shyness is not bad, but I think for me it was a reaction out of the way that I was being treated. And so for me it was not a good thing. And so when I met Jesus, I now know that I am loved and I matter to the God of the universe, and that's where my confidence comes from. And I could see this change that Jesus was making almost immediately. I have this diary that I would write in as a little kid. It's like one that's fuzzy and yellow on the outside and has one of those like little keys that you would turn. I found the entry from the day that I decided I wanted to follow Jesus, and it said in it, I now have Jesus, and I want to share him with everyone. That's a huge transformation for somebody who's like, I'm too scared to talk to people, to I now want to share Jesus with everyone. And something else began to happen. When I first came to know Jesus, I gave up everything that teenage me had, which wasn't a whole lot, but I didn't think twice about giving away everything. I just wanted people to know that they were seen and they were loved by Jesus. I spent all of my money and all of my parents' money that they gave me to buy lunches. I would give all of that to missions because I just wanted people to hear about Jesus. I spent hours praying for people in my life, and I also, with my friend Casey, would plan events to reach my fellow classmates in high school. I would give anything and everything. And then a few years later, when God asked me to do ministry as a job, I gave up my dad's plan for my life, which my dad's whole plan for me was that I should go into business and that he wanted me to own a Dairy Queen. And I think he wanted me to own a Dairy Queen so he could have free ice cream. That was his whole plan for my life, is that he wanted free ice cream. But I was still willing to give up those plans because I was so impacted by the love and the acceptance I was given by Jesus that I wanted everyone to know that Jesus sees them and that Jesus cares about them. And honestly, that's what brought me to doing Chi Alpha. I feel like it's just been a pattern of my life to just keep saying yes to whatever next thing Jesus says that he wants me to do. But I do want to say that sometimes, as someone who has been following Jesus for a while, even still, I can go back to that place in my mind where I start to think and believe that I don't belong, or that this is hard and I feel alone, or I feel unseen. And then Jesus reminds me all over again that he still sees me now. And so for those of you who are like me, and maybe you've been doing this faith thing for a while, maybe you've been following Jesus for a while, and maybe you're going through a new season in life. Maybe that season is that you're coming to school for the first time, or maybe you're leading a small group for the first time, and that's overwhelming. Or maybe it's that you've hit a hard spot in your mental health, or at your job, or a relationship that was once solid has disintegrated. Whatever it is, whatever thing that would have you thinking to yourself, I feel alone, or I feel unseen. Jesus reminded me while reading this story in preparation for this, that he sees you. He sees you, and just like he said to Zacchaeus, he wants to come and to be with us. And we're going to come back to that thought at the end, so hang on to that Jesus sees us no matter where we're at. Okay, well, some of you might be thinking, Kalyn, that's a really nice story that you just shared about your life. You were a shy kid who found friends and acceptance, and that's really cute and good for you, but that's not my story. That's not my experience. You may be thinking, I didn't happen to grow up in a nice home, or going to church, or have a friend who showed me that they cared about me. And if Jesus came walking by like he did with Zacchaeus, I don't know if he would call my name. You don't know what I'm like, or what I've been through, or where I've come from. And so to answer that, I want to talk a little bit more about Zacchaeus' story. So here it says in verse 7 that the people were displeased. He has gone to be the guest of a notorious sinner, they grumbled. All right. So the people call Zacchaeus a notorious sinner, which I think is harsh. that's a label. But remember that Zacchaeus was a tax collector, and the Jews of this crowd all knew who Zacchaeus was, and nobody liked him because of his job. And most tax collectors also used their positions of power to gain wealth in a way that didn't make friends. Now, it's unsure if this was how Zacchaeus gained his wealth, but either way, we do know that that's how the crowd thinks that he got his wealth. And so they did not like him. When it says they were displeased that Jesus goes to his house, that's probably a nice way of saying it. Like, they're very upset that Jesus goes to the house of Zacchaeus, because going to somebody's home in that day was a big deal. It meant, like, I approve of them, I align with them. And yet Jesus, knowing all of this about Zacchaeus and what people are thinking about him, he looks up in that tree and he calls Zacchaeus by name. I love this about Jesus, how he doesn't care what everyone else thinks about him going to Zacchaeus' house. He doesn't care that the people are displeased. He doesn't care what other people think about you. He wants to know you. No matter what you've done, he wants you to know that you belong here, that you belong in God's family. And so to show that, just a different story than mine, I've asked UWS student Eric to come and to share his story about the moment that Jesus came and called his name and how Jesus changed everything for him. So would you guys give it up for Eric? Yeah, Eric, you're so awesome. Yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability. I'm so glad that you said yes when Jesus called your name. And you really have changed into such a kind and generous person. Like, that's how I think of you. So it's cool to see how Jesus changed everything. So if you've ever wondered if you belong, hopefully our stories and the story of Zacchaeus can show you that you do belong. Everybody belongs in the family of God. You are seen, and you belong. And then lastly, I want to talk about that Jesus invites us into a new way of life. And this is what it looked like for the life of Zacchaeus. Starting and picking it back up in verse 8. It says, "Meanwhile, Zacchaeus stood before the Lord, and he said, 'I will give half of my wealth to the poor. Lord, if I have cheated anyone on their taxes, I will give them back 4 times as much.' And Jesus responded, 'Salvation has come to this home today, for this man has shown himself to be a true son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost.'" Jesus changes everything. His kindness leads us and invites us into a new way of life. One where we, like Zacchaeus, we want to live differently. One where we are invited to live generously. A life that isn't just about how much money can I make and keep it all to myself and live a comfortable life, but one where we see Zacchaeus encounters Jesus and he volunteers willingly to give 4 times anything that he had wrongfully taxed and to live in a new generous way by giving half of his wealth to the poor. Generosity is one of the ways that we can live like Jesus. We see this with the Zacchaeus, that he chooses to use his wealth and his power to financially bless others. And I want to say this, that generous living can look more than just what we can give when it comes to money. Dan mentioned this earlier. There are things that we can give and be generous with that come in the categories of time, talent, and treasure. I shared about how when Jesus called my name, I was so eager to share with others his love that I would do anything or give anything so that others would be blessed by knowing him. I wanted them to know that they were seen and that they were loved. And I didn't do this because I had to. It was something I wanted to do. It's something that Jesus invites us into. This is one of the reasons that we as Chi Alpha want to do the Hike Against Hunger. It's a way for us who have power and influence, and some of us have time to go and take a hike, and some of us have money to give. We want to help those who right now are in need. We want those who are unseen to know that they are seen. There are also ways that we can just do this in our everyday lives. We can each give of our time. Each of us have time that we can give. You can do this by caring for a friend or by spending time with people. Maybe you notice somebody who isn't popular, who is like the Kalyn, and you would say, I'm going to go and I'm going to choose to spend my time with that person who doesn't have many friends. You can also be generous with your time by praying for people. We can give of our talents. There are so many of you in this room that are so talented. I think that it's really easy to see the things that I'm not good at and just be like, oh, the worship team is so talented and I wish I were talented like them. Or there are people who understand how to do the tech side of things. You're amazing and you are so talented. You make Thursday nights happen. You can serve here on a Thursday. But some of you are just really good at welcoming people and seeing them. And not just here on a Thursday night, but in your everyday life. You just make friends all the time. That is a talent. That is a gift. And so you can use your talents and be generous with those to help others know that they are seen by God. And lastly, we can give of our treasure. This is more than just money. This is the things that we have. Some of the things that maybe you have as a college student sitting in this room, some of you may have a car. You can give rides to people. This is such a simple thing, but I actually watch our UWS students and our leaders do this all the time. They give rides to people because we have to travel up here every Thursday night, and I just watch them so willingly drive people up here. So we can give of our treasures. I try to do this with my house and just blessing people. And ever since we bought our house, we prayed, Lord, would our house bless other people? We don't want this to just be something for us. And so we invite people over. Sometimes we have people come and live or to stay with us. And this is something that I see the Chi Alpha community being really good at. I think you guys are really generous. I see that you share the things that you have. I see that you share your weirdly named houses. Okay, the ones that I know about are the hot dish house and the bird cage. I don't understand. But I see that you invite people over all the time, and it's so amazing. And you guys give rides, and you live generously. This is a way that we can live like Jesus. Because when we are seen by Jesus and we have him call our names and say, you belong, this invites us, Jesus invites us into living this generous life. We can live generously, just like we see in the life of Zacchaeus. So the things I want us to take away from this is one, that you are seen. That you belong here. And that you are invited to live generously. This is the way of following Jesus.